1, you can fax it in or whatever you, or just call us. But we'd love to see you there if you can come down. We'll start around 10 o'clock at the Hilton, and then we'll eventually go to the Capitol, and we'll make a lot of noise there, and we'll visit our elected officials. And I know Chris Laws would love to see you there. So anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about tonight, but I do want to tell you that real quickly, one of our members up here who heads up, he of course owns his own business, is an NFIB member. He's chairman of the Fox Valley Area Action Council, which is where NFIB members can come together locally and do things like this and rally around issues. And anyway, he's going to tell you a little bit about what it is, what this GRT could do to him, his companies, and people that he knows. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. I love seeing a great group of people interested in the situations our government is presenting us with, and I want to especially thank my friend Bob Boniface for hosting us tonight. Appreciate it. It's a great place to have an event like this, and I thank you. I want to thank Mark Grant. Mark does an awful lot of work on behalf of small business down in Springfield for NFIB, and with the recent changes in leadership over the course of time, he's had a lot more work to do with the small business climate changing, becoming more confusing recently here and more difficult, unfortunately. I thank you for it. You've all heard a lot about the GRT tonight from a very distinguished group of people, and I appreciate their points of view. And the gross receipts tax has many effects on many different people, as has been explained before. I want to give you my version of the GRT from the very small business point of view, how it affects me and how it affects my family. My personal take on the GRT, very briefly, is that it's a stealth tax on families, which is being collected by small businesses and the rest of the business community. It's an interesting maneuver on the governor's part. He claims businesses don't make a fair contribution to the state, but he leaves the consumers with the bill. Due to the GRT's pyramid scheme, in my opinion, it's difficult to quantify, and it's very difficult for small business to plan for. So I was doing some research, and I read a very brief piece online about the GRT, and it was written by a University of Illinois professor of economics, Dr. Fred Geertz. He explained that the GRT is really a tax on consumers because we're always going to pass this tax directly along to all of our customers. Well, I thought there's more to it than that, so I contacted Fred. And we had a conversation via email. And the bottom line was that I said, hey, you know what? Yeah, even if we could pass the entire GRT along to our customers, 100% of it, well, what does that do to our prices? It artificially raises our prices, and it means that all of our regional, our national, international competitors are going to have an advantage over us. I think that's not right. Well, we agreed. It's not a tax just on consumers. It is. They will pay for it. I agree with that. But the effect on business is detrimental in another respect, that we aren't going to be as competitive just by the nature of the way the prices will work. So, in other words, with maybe the slight exception of the Department of Revenue, we're all going to lose on the GRT. I'm grateful. I've been in business for 16 years here in the great state of Illinois. And over the course of that time, technology has changed, industries have sprung up, and I've changed the approach to how I do my business. And instead of one company, now I have 3 companies. And my advisors told me to create a great structure that gives me some tax preferences. It does liability protection for me, and it improves my cash flow. And I appreciate all that. And this GRT is going to come along and undo some of that, because naturally some of the money that I get in is going to go from one company to another company. For instance, some of you may have PEOs. You might use a different company for your payroll. Well, how is that going to work? Are we going to have to pay the tax again just because it's going to go from one place to another place? Personally, that doesn't help me, and I can't pass that tax along directly. I can't say to someone that, well, it's 1.8% or 1.95% now, if I understand the most recent version. But I got to do it twice, so I need to give you, can you pay me 3.9% extra maybe? Or that won't work. No one's going to buy into that because, frankly, no one likes price increases in the first place. And a price increase to pay for a tax which no one can clearly see is not good for business in Illinois. Now, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My grandfather had a welding shop. I spent most of my life around my father's excavating business. My stepmother's here tonight. She's an antique dealer. And I have a computer consulting company and a graphic design firm. Each of these businesses will be directly affected by a GRT. Whether they make the threshold or not, we all get affected by it. Now, for the purpose of this discussion, I want to just bring it into a personal level and focus on my father's excavating business because that's got tremendous effects of the GRT. In construction, energy is a critical component. For the excavating business, which we have, in particular, fuel is a primary energy source. Due to the nature of the fuel industry, diesel fuel and gasoline change hands several times before they reach the end user. Estimates I found online that were available show that there's going to be an increase of 10 to 15% per gallon the first day of the GRT. That's just an estimate. That becomes one of the sources we'll see in this pyramid problem that the GRT raises. Subcontractors are another essential aspect of small business construction. In the dirt business, as we refer to it, contractors are required to install silt fences, concrete curbing, asphalt, right on down the line. Other services, trucking, tree removal, landscaping, boring of roads, everything. All this adds to this pyramid thing because they're going to go from one to the next to the next. And hardly a day goes by in the world of Oswego excavating without using gravel at a job site. Well, the gravel pits costs are going to be affected by the increased fuel we just referred to. In addition, they've got to add in their 0.85% now. Is that the point for 0.85 for manufacturing for the manufacturing part of the GRT? Now we've got to have a trucking company hit that gravel and bring it to the job site. Well, they could deal with the fuel increase as well. Then they're going to have to give us the 1.85, 0.95, yeah, very confusing those numbers. And the GRT version for the service part of the business, that's going to go in and increase the cost of doing construction. So the bottom line is, since it takes a whole team of specialists in the construction industry to do some of these larger projects, the GRT is going to add in a pyramid fashion over and over again. By the way, Oswego Excavating is most all the time a subcontractor, so with the pyramid you continue to the general contractor and on up it goes. So in dollar terms, it'd be very hard to estimate the total cost increases that we face, since each job is different and there's no set formula we can use for every different kind of job we see. However, a relatively small, let's say for easy estimates, a $3 million a year excavating contractor would now be facing a new tax of just $58,500. We only have 10 guys. That could mean a job. Okay. I hope that it wouldn't come to that, but that's the fact of the matter. And if you have a sister company, let's say you have a property holding company, or you have an equipment leasing company, now you transfer money from one to the other, you're paying that service tax again. This hurts small business all the way around. In my conversation with Dr. Pierce, the economist from Illinois, he stated very clearly to me, I'm going to quote him, quote, "I would expect the GRT tax to have major negative impact on construction costs." Quote. Now, isn't there some irony here that Logevich plans to use the GRT to build new schools in the state? Those aren't construction projects. Maybe that explains why they've already had to increase the rates upward in order to cover the increased cost that his own GRT would bring to his own projects. It's a little funny to me that he actually chose a tax for which he can't even exempt his own projects because the GRT affects everything. If it moves in the state of Illinois, we're paying extra tax for it for this GRT. In fact, in my understanding of things, and this differs a little bit from yours, the GRT for Illinois acts like a little like a sales tax, a little like a service tax, a little like a value-added tax. So it's kind of all three rolled into one. Only this administration could be so efficient in getting so much from a single new tax. If it was this efficient in spending our tax money, they might not need to ask for the GRT in the first place. I found there's one other effect that's been touched on. The fact that the smaller companies like mine, we have to outsource, our attorneys, our bookkeepers, our accountants, even our computer consultants. Well, we'll be paying a GRT tax on all those services provided they are large enough to have to pay one. But the larger companies that we compete with, well, they may have their own internal staff to do all those things. That's an advantage that they would have. Now, it may not be a significant expense, but in my opinion, it just not only deals with the cost burden of Illinois business, but it complicates the level playing field we've had so far. So, the GRT's effects are so many, especially in the construction business, that I understand. Before I go, I'd like to plug my favorite small business group, NFIB. You've already heard from Mark about what's going to happen in Springfield with this tax from occurring. And Mark leads all the area action councils throughout the state of Illinois. And the goal is to get local business owners to speak with one voice, a louder voice, so we get heard at the state capitol. Now, there are a lot of groups that represent small businesses. I believe the NFIB way works very well. It works for me. NFIB lets you be as involved as you can afford to be, while still giving you a voice in Springfield and in Washington. And during issues like the GRT, I believe that your business can't afford to not be involved. So let's get together, make a real difference for our companies, our employees, our families, and our state. Let's stop the GRT. Thank you.